Hello, everybody, and welcome to the April session of the Career Coaching Special Interest Group. My name is Amy Mallow. You probably know me already. I am your host, and I am here in Henderson, Nevada, after moving here a year ago from LA. My specialty is career coaching of lawyers and legal professionals. I have an ACC through the ICF, and I also want to introduce my co-host, Magda. You want to just say a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. Yes, hi everybody. My name is Magda. I have been with ICFLA for over a year now. Recently certified by ICF with ACC. Yay, thanks. And really happy to be here. I am a relatively new coach or new to coaching, but I specialize in leadership and career coaching and life transitions. So happy to be here with Amy and with everybody.
Great. And Magda will be monitoring the chat and also the when people are admitting, she'll be the waiting room.
Yes.
So we're really happy that you've joined us today for this special interest group section. And this is coaching through a VUCA framework. I want to introduce our guest speaker, who we are thrilled to have us join us today, Alex Wallash. And I'll tell you a little bit about him. And then Alex, I want you to supplement with anything that I miss in your background.
Sounds great.
Alex is an executive coach who is passionate about helping leaders and business owners thrive by working through the challenges that keep them up at night. Alex holds a master's in organizational development and leadership, an executive certificate in leadership coaching from Georgetown University, and an ACC credential through the International Coaching Federation. And Alex is also the director of communications for the ICF Bay Area chapter. So he's coming up from Northern Cal. So welcome, Alex. We are thrilled to have you here. And I am now going to turn the floor over to you to talk to us about the VUCA framework.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy, Magda, and thank you all for coming today. I just first want to say that I am grateful to be here with you all. I'm excited about the opportunity to collaborate between chapters, one coach to another. And I'm excited to talk about the VUCA framework with all of you because it's something I think about a lot, this idea of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I think about a lot in terms of how it shows up in my own life and how I work with it to be a better coach and show up better for my clients. And then I think about it a lot in terms of how it affects my clients and the ways that I work with my clients to support them in the VUCA that is inherent to leadership and many other aspects of life that I'm guessing your clients engage with. So I'm going to bring up the deck just to share a little bit more about myself so you kind of get a better sense of who I am, where I'm coming from for just a minute. And then I want to do a brief check-in with each of you. So I'm pulling up the deck now. All right, so we're here to discuss VUCA. I'm going to share a few pictures so you can get to know me just a little better over the next 30 seconds. These are the people who have known me the longest in my life. These are my parents and my three sisters. And this is us in Morro Bay on a family camping trip. And I just show up because they're like a solid foundation for me in my life. I studied molecular biology in undergrad and got into biotech sales right out the gate. But ultimately, for me, it was a way to understand business so that I could start my own business. But during this time of life technologies, I met my wife about 14 years ago. And this is us at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, really naively hiking it in one day. Thankfully, we made it back out. Her name is Brittany. And she's also been a rock in my life that supports me with weathering the VUCA that comes my way. This is a picture of me along with many of my coworkers at my last business. So I left biotech to start a brewery, and I ended up being a co-founder and co-leader of a brewery for a full decade. The name was The Rare Barrel, and we're located here in Berkeley. And this was where I really started to experience VUCA. And at this time, these 10 years of running and leading a business, that was when I was so confused and I did not know what VUCA was. I thought it was just chaos. I was just like, oh, this is just wild chaos. But further along, I realized that there's actually different approaches to it, which is why I'm here. Um, the reason I started a brewery was I realized long ago my purpose was to bring people together to connect in the present moment. And a younger version of myself thought that beer was the way to do that. Combine art, biology, make beer, brings people together. And to one extent, I did that with my purpose. But I also, towards the end of my time, I went to coaching school, and I found that coaching was a more direct path to bringing people together and connecting in the present moment. So that's when I started my independent coaching practice, which I call Blue Goldfish. These are my two dogs, Pickles and Bilbo, my colleagues. They're here in the office with me. I show them because they're another grounding presence for me, navigating what it means to be living in a VUCA world. And this is a picture of me with our board for the San Francisco Bay Area ICF chapter. And I just bring this up because this has been a really fun and meaningful way for me to engage with the coaching community, including y'all here. So today we're here to discuss VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. These are four distinct forces. So VUCA is referred to as this one acronym. We could say VUCA, but it's not one thing. At the beginning, I just want to highlight that it is four different things. And so we're going to dive into that in a moment. But before we dive into that, when I think of this, when I think of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, I need to pause and take a breath. That's a lot there. And so what I would love to do now is just invite us into a brief check-in, a moment to practice self-awareness, draw your senses inward, and check in on your internal weather. And so what I mean by internal weather is, what is a word or phrase similar to the weather pattern connecting with imagery that describes how you're feeling in this moment? It could be sunny, stormy, blizzardy, rainy, rainbows, windy. So I invite you to just take the next 15 seconds, drawing your senses inward, and just gently asking the question, what is my internal weather right now? What's one word or phrase that describes how I'm feeling in this moment? And then whenever you're ready, turn your attention to the chat, and I'll invite you to do a 3-word check-in. Your name, your location, and your internal weather. Name, location, and internal weather. All right, so I see us coming in from Nevada, Seattle, LA, Idaho, Florida, Los Angeles, Tahoe, Santa Barbara, Utah, Dallas. Wow, we're covering the country. This is amazing. And I see internal weathers ranging from cloudy to rising sun, windy, foggy, clear, partly cloudy, sunny, warmth, peaceful, calm winds, sunny. Just want to take a moment to thank you all for showing up as you are, and you're welcome in this space as you are. I'm going to pull the deck back up to dive back into VUCA. So what I'd like to do now is go through each of these four forces and explore a simple definition of what is volatility. I'm going to pull up an image so we can access the image part of the mind, how we picture it that way. And then after that, I'm going to share with you some suggested strategies to work with this. But before we do that, throughout this presentation and the conversation, I want to invite you to consider 3 different perspectives that you could oscillate between as you explore VUCA. The first one is I, the perspective of self. How does this affect me? If you're working with a coaching client, it's how does it affect the client? Second perspective is we, this perspective of group dynamics or team dynamics when people are coming together. How does VUCA affect the interpersonal relationships, and how do the interpersonal relationships ultimately affect you or your client that you're supporting? And the third perspective is it. These are the broader systems at play, the culture. And if I zoom out and look at the state of the United States right now in our country, there are a lot of forces of VUCA at play right now that might not have been as amplified 6 months ago. So this is, if you're supporting a client who's in a leadership position, it could also be what are the systems and processes within an organization or lack thereof. It could also be looking at the organization that they're a part of as a whole and all the other aspects of culture too. So let's start with volatility. What is volatility? One component of it is that it's sudden, it's rapid, and it's an unexpected change. A sudden, rapid, unexpected change. I wrote an article on volatility and sent it into ChatGPT's image creator and said, hey, please create an image based off of my article on volatility. And this is one of the images that it created. And so just take a moment to sit with this image and see how you relate to volatility and the imagery that can be associated with it. When I look at this, I see choppy waters. It's bumpy, but then there's this big wave that comes out of nowhere. It could be like a tsunami kind of wave. A tsunami is formed from an earthquake. It's this single sudden event where the plates shift one way or another, and then a giant wave is formed. And volatility can potentially lead to destruction, like with a tsunami, but it doesn't always have to. And so I'll invite you now to take a moment to reflect on volatility and how that might be showing up for you and or people you support. If you choose to give examples of people you support, like clients, of course, we're all coaches here adhering to the ICF ethics, so don't give away any identifying features. But I'd love to just crowdsource some examples of volatility that are coming up for you. So this is a moment to reflect on your own experience. How might volatility be affecting you or the people you're working with right now? Type it in the chat. Yeah, so from Gay, I'm hearing with government employees, fearful, there's this component of one day, everyone had their job. And then a day later or a couple of days later, there's announcements of huge layoffs across the federal government. That's an example of volatility that's affecting everyone in federal government. The current tariff situation. Yeah. Overnight, laws went into effect. This sudden thing that went into effect that is going to drastically and suddenly and rapidly change how we do business. Carmen's mentioning executive orders. There are so many executive orders coming through that are sudden and unexpected that organizations and people don't have time to plan for. So there's so many in here. I would love to go through all of them, but for the sake of time, I want to move on to some strategies. And thank you all for just taking this moment to reflect and share in the chat how you're seeing volatility show up. So let's look at 3 potential strategies for working with volatility. This first one is to maintain or build strategic buffers. So I'm talking about strategic buffers when I think about it with my clients. One thing we talk about is scheduling and an issue with overscheduling. I work with one executive director, and he said, through work exploring volatility, he said, I can't schedule more than 80% of my day because I have to account for this 20% buffer of unexpected things to come up that need to be addressed right away. I was meeting with a principal of a school last week who said, I can't schedule more than 50% of my day because there are so many people that come to me that I need to leave that buffer in there. When I think about myself and my own buffers, I think about self-care and my emotional capacity to show up and support my clients. I think about the buffers that come from exercise that I do that builds a resilience in me. I practice meditation and different meditative practices as a way to build a buffer on my end. For people who are fearful of job loss, a strategic buffer could be savings and building in savings and things like that. So I'm sure there's many other ways to build strategic buffers, but that's just something that is an approach to weather a sudden, unexpected change. And the other one is to have clarity and know your vision. And this is something I think we as coaches do a lot of. It's helping our clients have clarity around where they want to go. And so when you're working with volatility, it's being able to reorient to your vision. You don't have to change it, but just remind yourself where you are going. What is your aspirational, desired future state? And then working with volatility too, keep that vision that you have going. You don't need to drop it or change it, but you may need to adjust the course or the approach, how you get there. So be open to, now that things have changed, the game board has changed, what do I need to do to adjust my actions in order to get to my achieved vision, desired destination? So I'll pause here, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat. If you type a 1, 2, or 3 in, which one of these do you resonate with most? Which one of these is either like probably going to be most helpful for you as a coach or supporting your clients when you bring this into practice? Just type a 1, 2, or 3 into the chat. So I'm seeing a lot of 1s and 2s. A lot of 1s and 2s in there. I'm seeing a lot of support and interest in maintaining and building strategic buffers and knowing your vision. This is great. Thank you. Let's move on to the U in VUCA. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is hallmarked by an absence of a clear path forward. And it's often due to a lack of information. The path forward is unknown. I'm not sure what direction I'm going to go in, how I'm going to get there, or any of that, where to go. And I don't have a lot of data. Just take a moment to sit with this image of uncertainty. I wonder if someone would like to come off mute and just share what they're seeing here. If there's any words that come to mind when it comes to this image and the definition of uncertainty.
What comes to mind for me is the Cheshire Cat when Alice in Wonderland asks which way to go. And he says, people do go both ways.
Thank you, Heidi. Layla. Hi, Layla. I saw you came up off mute too.
Hi, Alex. I love the definition and talking about lack of information. And that really resonates with me with a lot of the time when we're trying to help clients with clarity on their goals, their vision, the next step where they're stuck. It's a lot of the times this uncertainty. So it most certainly calls to me. But it's interesting. And maybe there's other pieces of the VUCA there, right? That we're just addressing this one piece of the uncertainty, but what if we're not addressing the other three pieces? So very resonant for me, and really checking back in self-awareness with myself as a coach to make sure we're exploring potentially, especially if it's an executive leadership coaching engagement, the other three pieces that could be at play, also impacting and compounding that uncertainty.
Yeah. Thank you, Layla. I really love what you're sharing there too about there can be these multiple forces at play. So it might not be just uncertainty, but there could be one or sometimes all four at play with a client. Barry, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to meet you, Alex.
Nice to meet you too.
I have a I have a certainty vision, and let me explain where it is. I learned when I was with Tony Robbins on, I'm not sure if he taught me or I just figured it out, on how to create a level of feeling or a knowing of certainty regardless of the circumstances. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes I go, whoa, what happened? But then it's like I can go, okay, how do I recalibrate to be certain even though in uncertainty? And so like in this picture, here's a person, I'm not sure which way they're looking, but for me, the certainty is okay, there's the ground and there's the lines, the road or whatever. And then up on the left, there's some indicators of where I am, if that was me. There's these three towers and these things. So I just want to be clear, I'm not saying I never have uncertainty. It's just there's some way of knowing when I go, okay, it's uncertain. Okay, great, it's uncertain, but how can I be in certainty that it's like, okay, that it's uncertain, even though, pardon the expression, the shit is hitting the fan kind of thing. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that that's like a totally different perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I'm going to address that one in a moment on the strategy side because I think you actually touch on one of the two strategies that I bring up for this. And so I'm going to pause in responding to that one because I love what you're bringing up there. The last thing I'll say before we move on is just that for me, when I see this, there's this component of multiple paths, windy roads, and fog. Fog to me is a component of uncertainty, not being able to see far enough ahead that I want. And Amy, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so as I look at this more closely and to what Barry just said, is then there's all this stuff going on around, but then there's that little glimmer of the sun that's all the way ahead. And just having faith, kind of what he said kind of sparked that. It's like just having faith that with all this uncertainty, there is some light there and that you're going to get there, but you may have to go through all of this stuff that's surrounding you first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, Amy. Thank you. Why don't we talk about a few strategies for this? I have two here. This first one is the textbook answer to working with uncertainty, and it's involving strengthening your information networks. Ultimately, what this involves is a way of gathering more data and more information, and it can be who are you engaging with? It can be what perspectives do they hold? A part of this, working with uncertainty, is gathering perspectives that are different from yours. People have different opinions, forming cross-functional teams within an organization. It's not going into your echo chamber of getting perspectives from everyone who agrees with you and is already saying you're right and whatnot, but it's actually going outside of that comfort zone and learning from other people with different perspectives. And this is something you could do one-on-one with other people. This is something you can do in an organization by forming cross-functional teams with bringing engineers with researchers and business and all them together in the same room. The second one, which I would say is not the textbook approach, but this is one that I think is important for us as coaches and how we can serve our clients, is examining how one relates to uncertainty. And this Barry was what I was pausing to respond to, because I think there's a component of that you brought up in what you shared. Here it's like, how do I relate to uncertainty? I'll say, before I gave this any thought, I hated uncertainty and I was so uncomfortable with it and it made me cringe and I just had to know. And there was a sense of like, oh, I'd rather know and feel like I had a sense of comfort and clarity, even though I was wrong. And now I've reworked with how I navigate uncertainty, and I'm able to sit with it a little bit more. And so I think one of the things we can do as coaches is support our clients in how do they relate to what it's like to sit with uncertainty. And there's often feelings behind that and thoughts and beliefs behind that too that can be examined.
Can I add
Alex,
something?
can you, I was just going to also ask, Alex, a lot of people are asking to go back to when you're finished with this, the slide that has the definition of uncertainty, just to come back with that. So yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Barry.
When you're done with that, I want to go to that when we're done, go back to that last screen you had, because you said something that I got clear definition that I didn't realize.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I realized is you said something, or I heard something in me, and the distinction is knowing versus thinking. Thinking is great, and sometimes we overthink, or sometimes somebody say I think when they're really saying I doubt. And the distinction I just got, or you said, or something, was I didn't realize I do this. To create the certainty, I go into knowing. I don't go into thinking. I go into knowing. I don't go into doubt. And let's just say I never doubt anything. But if I go, what if, I'm not sure, doubt, I go into more uncertainty. So you said something, or I thought I heard something about knowing, which to me helps at least me get out of it.
Yeah, I love that, Barry, and I'm hearing there's this component too within that of cultivating a greater awareness. Like what I'm thinking, riffing off of you, is cultivating greater awareness of what it's like to feel uncertainty and think about uncertainty and relate to it in different ways. And I'll even build in the somatic side of things here. I think for me, uncertainty has often showed up as anxiety. This like butterflies in my stomach associated with fear. And so as I have examined how I relate to uncertainty, a part of it has been the cognitive thinking approach, and a part of it has been, how do I feel like when I'm in an uncertain situation? What does it mean to be able to sit with that discomfort and unpack that too? So if we do just a quick check-in in the chat, what are y'all relating to here, just in terms of what you want to bring in to your practice, either for yourself or with your clients when working with uncertainty? Are you connecting with number one more, or two more, or both? And while you're doing that, Erica, I see your hands raised.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think something that came up for me when we're having our discussion around uncertainty is that idea of the word that you just landed on, which is discomfort. And I think about my experience as a trainer and instructional designer, and that when we learn, the learning process comes through basically those points of failure, or it comes through some sort of stickiness, right? Something that's kind of pushing back on us. And it's about finding the balance and helping, I would say, then our clients find a balance, that some resistance in regards to the uncertainty is not necessarily a bad thing. That's where it could be a really fertile ground for new awareness and new growth. I think it's when the uncertainty becomes too overwhelming, right? Where it triggers rumination, it triggers maybe past traumas, depending on what previous experience was, where if it doesn't allow the person to feel that they are anchored and that they have supports that they're able to recognize, like if we looked at your picture, like there were supports in the foreground as far as, and I think Barry mentioned it, like the ground is there. So even though there might be some uncertainty and discomfort in what the moving forward might be, the supports were still visible, and that can help to realize that this is just a discomfort and growth and not necessarily like, complete chaos.
Yeah, I love that, Erica. Thank you. And when I think about discomfort, I think there's a component where it can show up in our clients for all four of these forces in one form or another. And when I also think about discomfort in the coaching context, that can provide data for our clients and us if we create a safe space for them to connect with that and feel into it and understand what it actually is trying to tell them too. So thank you so much, Erica. Amy.
So something just came to mind, and when you and I, Alex, were talking earlier about Chip Conley and some of the work that he's done, and I remember in one of the certifications I took, there was these equations, right? And so one of them, I believe, was anxiety equals powerlessness plus uncertainty, right? So if you can work with your clients, so the powerlessness is what are the pieces that you can control? If you can't reduce the uncertainty, so to kind of get that equation to work in balance a little bit, so then look at what actually can you do? And so I guess for me, as I think about some of the chaos that's going on, like what small thing can I do during this uncertainty to at least give me some at least feeling that I'm doing something that I can control.
Yeah, I love that you're tying in. You're focusing the attention on the agency and choice that our clients have. And I almost with every client I work with, it comes up at some point where I invite them to think about the things in their life in three buckets of control. They have one bucket, they have to put every decision or everything in their life into one of three buckets. The things they have absolute control over, things they have some control over, and things they have no control over. And usually with this exercise, they often find that most things fall in the bucket of I have no control over it. Some fall in the I have some control. And then very few things fall in the I have absolute total control over it. And it can help with perspective and focus and agency. Amy, I want to do a quick time check. I'm about like 2/3 of the way through. Is it okay to keep going at this pace, or should I speed things up?
Absolutely. I think if we finish by about, let's see, 10 would another 15 minutes be good?
I could do 15. I could do 10 too, if you want to do 10.
I think 15 will be good, and then that'll give us enough time to go into breakout rooms.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So why don't we move on now to complexity? Complexity. There are so many interconnected parts that it's difficult to see the relationship between cause and effect. So cause and effect is a big component here where the fog starts to come in. If I do this, how is this going to affect things? There's unknowns there. But there's a lot going on. The difference between complexity and uncertainty at a high level is the amount of data that you have or your client has. In complex situations, there's often too much data to easily make sense of it. So here's an image that was created off of an article that I wrote around complexity when the machines interpreted what complexity looks like from my writings. Well, what are you seeing here? Feel free to unmute if you'd just like to share a word or a sentence, how you're making sense of complexity with this image.
Sense of overwhelm a little bit.
It just comes, the thing that comes to mind is it's just too much.
Yeah, too much. Yeah.
For me, it's a cross between The Great Gatsby. It's how I imagine that went. And if you've ever been to Orlando and they do the laser fireworks show, it's like all the things at Disney at once.
Yeah, I like that, Tiffany.
And I loved what Roland just said, hard to connect the dots. So what immediately came to mind is like, I can't really make sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of dots, but it's almost like the connections, it's like almost invisible in a way. Like, yeah, if you can see this type of energy, yeah, you could make sense of it. But often in complex situations, it's hard to see the dots because it's invisible. And also, look, there's so many more people in this one too.
It seems crowded, and also it feels like you're alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll add too, there's a lot of movement with complexity. It's not quiet. There's a lot going on. So working with complexity, I'm going to say, wow, Roland, okay. I'm just going to go right to the first one because you teed that up perfectly. Roland said, probably easier to see if any patterns come from a bird's eye view. And one of the approaches to working with complexity is to zoom out and look at the broader systems that are at play. The bird's eye view in the work of an organization is looking at the systems and the processes and zooming out to the three perspectives we talked about, the I, we, it, zooming out to the it perspective. Second approach is prioritizing clarity, not oversimplification, because in a complex system, you can't stop it. It's going to keep going. Everything's in motion. And so what you can do is make sense of it and gain clarity, but you can't simplify the system and everything that's going on there. And the way you can find some clarity is through creating safe to fail experiments, which a lot of us are probably used to with our clients, at the end of our session when we invite them to take something they learned and bring it into the real world. That's a safe to fail experiment there. And that is a really great approach to complexity because it's a way for you to tease the system, to do something differently, and then learn from it, and then do it again. And if you're like really diving into working with complex adaptive systems, you have a lot of experiments going on at once because you don't know which ones are going to pan out and which ones are going to provide data. But when you create a safe to fail experiment that gives you good data, that helps you find the link between cause and effect, then run with that one and keep making different iterations of it. For the other experiments that don't work, scrap them. You learned something right there too. Last thing I'll say on complexity is that, if we look at, if any of you are familiar with Dave Snowden's model, the Cynefin model that looks at situations that are complex and complicated, which are often the domains of leadership. One of the biggest challenges I've had, and this was like a huge aha moment, was that when working with a complex system, I can't analyze my way to a solution. I can't just crunch the numbers, or I can't hire an expert to say, what is your analysis of this? This involves getting involved with the process. It involves having conversations with people. It involves being in the system, not looking out it and just analyzing it.
Alex, can you spell out the, someone asked that model that you just mentioned? Maybe put it in the chat if you. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's a Welsh word. That's why we're probably not familiar with it.
No, definitely not intuitive.
Yeah. So when it comes to complexity, which of these are resonating with you? Like if you were to take this and a client were to show up in this next session you have with them and you all start exploring complexity, if you were to remember one of these approaches, 1, 2, or 3, which one do you think you would lean into? All right, I'm seeing what looks like a pretty even mix. Got some interest in all 3 of these here. Great. Now let's move to our 4th lens through which we can explore this, and it's ambiguity. I'm going to admit this one's actually the most challenging one for me, both to explain and work with. And maybe it's inherent to ambiguity because the rules are unclear here. Information can be open to interpretation. The way you see it, Erica, could be different from the way Barry sees it, from the way Magda sees it, and from the way I see it. the right move isn't obvious, and it's probably or potentially because there is no right move in this situation. And what we're working in here is the realm of the unknown unknowns. So you might not know what you don't know, which is a really weird place to be in, to not know what I don't know. So here's one way to look at ambiguity visually that I saw. And if anyone would like to unmute and just share what sense you're making from this image, from ambiguity, I'd love to hear from you.
Just not really knowing which way to go here.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, this really calls me back into the times when in a leadership environment, everyone has an opinion and you're unable to really make a decision or take a path forward. And it's just a lot of no clarity, basically.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the House of Mirrors, and I'm not sure where I went as a kid, but like to a fun house or something, an arcade, and you go down these House of Mirrors and you don't know where you are until you get into them.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's like a maze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this is Roland. Also, there's no horizon, there is no ceiling. And even if you before cardinal points are like very undefined. So you don't know if you're going north, south, east, or west, and there's no ending. It's like an infinite, type of situation, which causes ambiguity and unsettlement, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I look at this, to run with that, I'm like, am I supposed to be engaging with a maze? Like, is the point of this to walk through the maze? Or is the point of it to look at this mirror? Or is that a portal? And am I supposed to walk through it? And will I come out on one of these other ones or disappear to somewhere else? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here.
This almost makes me think of the idea about it's the journey and not the destination, that sometimes perhaps in a place of ambiguity, being able to focus on what the journey is providing us and being able to sort of detach from an expectation of outcome and being able to find the benefits or the wins out of what has been happening in the progression, even if there's the unknown unknowns or even known unknowns. So maybe that is also something that can help to provide a sense of clarity or stability in the sense of ambiguity.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. I love that. And I'm gonna come back to that when we start talking about approaches to it. Heidi.
Yeah, it would seem that you would really need to rely on the internal compass that you have with your intuition at this point. Because when there's no clear external cues, just like you had asked us, what's our internal weather at the beginning, then you turn to the inside to use the skills that are there that we don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that, in terms of the opportunities with ambiguity, as if, there's opportunities in complexity and opportunities and the opportunities in ambiguity is like there's so many possibilities. And if we are in a space of exploration, inquiry, engagement, it can really begin to delve into areas that we previously did not know were possible. So it really opens up to, new world of possibilities, kind of like we don't know what we don't know, a world of the unknowns.
Yeah. Roland, that's really great. And I think that you're touching on something there that is one of the benefits that can come from ambiguity. Like there is possibility. Things potentially haven't been defined yet. it can be unclear. And so there's possibility that can come from that. I'm
You
going
know,
to move forward to strategy.
I was just going to say, as well as possibility, looking at the other side of the coin, and possibility and volatility, uncertainty, right? All those, all the VUCA terms, like, what is the possibility here?
Yeah.
Which seems a little bit more, not to not acknowledge, the messiness, but it seems that, also we're looking at the other side of the coin, and we're not so overwhelmed by the fact that this is totally negative.
Yeah, I appreciate that zooming out. And when I think of adult development as a whole, a lot of as we go through developmental stages as adults, it often comes hallmarked by these life events, like something happened that affects our life and forces us to go through a transition. And so yeah, I'm kind of just thinking out loud as I connect some of the dots around that, around some of the good that can come from VUCA, even though I'm mostly focusing on the challenging sides and how to navigate it. But hey, with this last minute, I want to make sure we all have time for the breakout rooms. Working with ambiguity. What are some strategies to do that? Learn through experimentation. This is similar to the complexity side of things. Experiment with it and try to understand, what are the rules that we're playing with here? Create shared meaning through dialogue. This is making sense of what is it like to be in this ambiguous environment. Erica, I thought of this one when you shared yours around focusing on the journey instead of the destination, because I think this is something that us as coaches, whether we're working one-on-one, or let's say if you're coaching a team or you're a leader on a team, you can facilitate the sense-making process to bring people together. Because if you're experiencing ambiguity in a group environment or a team environment, probably other people around you are too. And so making sense and meaning out of it together can be very helpful. And along with that, build psychological safety too. Facilitate communication, open communication, be more active with the communication, and do things that build trust amongst the people that you are working with, whether it's a group or a team. So my last poll before I take down the deck, invite you to just go ahead and type into the chat 1, 2, or 3. Which one of these are you resonating with more? And Amy, I see your hands up.
Yeah, just real quick. And again, I want to be mindful of the time too. When you're talking about just, if you could even give an example, if you've done this, one strategy to create that shared meaning through dialogue, what might be one way to kind of facilitate that? Yeah.
So I would say you stay grounded in your coaching practices with asking open-ended questions that start with what, how, who, when, sometimes why. You could ask, what are you seeing right now in regards to X? How do you relate to this? What rules are you playing by here? What is unknown? And how does that affect you? Does that give kind of a way? And then it's kind of go from there with them to see like what is needed by the group in that moment to find more clarity and make sense of. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Barry.
I just want to add to that. There's some different processes. One of them is called 6 thinking hats, where you have different hats, different perspectives you look at. I would think that maybe something like that on the Great Shared Meeting might help people get some different viewpoints or perspectives.
Cool. I will have to check that out. Thanks for sharing 6 different hats. Okay, well, that's the presentation part of this. Now we have some breakout room exercises to continue the learning and give you a chance to explore case study and explore VUCA through it. So I'm going to pull down the deck and I'm going to pass it back to you, Amy. Great. Well, thank you so much, Alex. That was really helpful and thought-provoking, and a really good overview to now
as a foundation to send people out into breakout rooms. And so what Magda and I have done is we've created 2 case studies that we think will lend itself to a discussion around this framework and coaching strategies to discuss within yourselves, among yourselves, when you look at the case studies. So Magna is going to put, you want to put the 2 case studies in the chat. What we're going to do, though, is we're randomly assigning, we're going to put you into 4 groups, and then we're going to randomly assign one of these case studies for you guys to discuss within the group. So maybe, let's see. We have number 1 and are they, okay, 1 and 2. Maybe download both of them if you can, and then, well, actually, Magda, I'm going to let you handle the breakout room logistics from here.
Okay, thanks, Amy. I think you've introduced it just how we designed it. So 2 case studies. One focuses on the government sector and the other one on media and entertainment. And both sectors are really experiencing unprecedented changes at the moment with layoffs and also AI approach in the media and entertainment with through creativity. So we'll have 4 breakout rooms. We'll assign you randomly, but we were thinking that group 1 and 2 could focus on case study 1, and group 3 and 4 to focus on case study 2. I've just dropped both documents. They are in PDF format in the meeting chat for everybody. And as Amy said, if you could just download them and pull them up once you join the breakout room to read through, reference, that would be really great. And I think we planned 15 minutes, right? But maybe we need a little bit less since it's all, how much time do we have, Amy? I think we have 15 more minutes.
Yeah, I say we could probably, how about we do 12 minutes, and then that will bring everybody back maybe to discuss. We won't have a whole lot of time to discuss, but I really do want you to, we're going to have, so Layla, there's going to be some questions in the case studies for you guys to discuss.
Yes.
So that's what we want you to really discuss, and then we'll have a little bit of time to come back and kind of share some insights in the group. But really, since it's a bigger group here, to do that discussion within your group. All right, so everybody get the assignment. You're gonna get your assigned 1 and 2 are gonna have the first one, 3 and 4 are gonna have the second one. You're gonna go into the breakout rooms and you're gonna discuss the case study that was assigned to your group, and then we will call you back in about 12 minutes or so.
All right, I'm opening up all rooms now. If you could please join, I'm broadcasting it at the moment. Oh, nope.
Hopefully, I know you probably could even use more time to talk about this, but we don't have a lot of time. So what I'd like to do is groups 1 and 2 each had the government case study. So from group 1, I'd like somebody to just take a couple minutes and share from your group, some of the insights or the strategies that you discussed. Does anybody feel free to just raise your hand if you want to talk about that. Group 1. All right, who was in group 1? Because I don't have
I was in group something,
right,
I don't know, 1 or 2.
Group 1
I
and 2.
volunteers to you. Okay. We started to talk about like how the way it was explained led us to focus on the uncertainty aspect. But then it felt like, oh, well, if we have them talk through, even if we don't call it VUCA, if we talk through each aspect, we could see where their energy was and where they wanted to start. And then Cynthia reminded us about the I, we, it. So it just felt like a nice place to pull back all the layers. But also I want to acknowledge the fact that picturing these pictures, so helpful as a framework to what they might be experiencing as well.
So any particular insights or strategies that came out of that, Tiff?
More like coming out of that big picture thinking, because they don't know what they don't know. So if we pull back and we look at the whole system, see, I remember, I was paying attention, then we have that opportunity for them to see it from a different perspective and see the path forward.
Yeah, rather than just focusing on their very specific, impactful situation to themselves. Okay, great. Anybody else that had case study one, since I don't know who was in one or two? Somebody else that was maybe in a different group with case study one on the government, would you like to share some of your discussion? Anybody? Heidi, is that you? No, you volunteered? Oh.
Erica did such a great job of facilitating us through that. And it was just a very productive, I felt, work together where we determined, getting the parameters of the person getting taken care of, addressing and listening to what was important to them. And then ultimately getting to the place of the transferable competencies that were available to go from the public sector into the private sector, and to work with different ways after acknowledging, how their values had been somewhat trampled on, and all of that, and then what values are still resonant and that can navigate forward with them. So that's, anybody else want to add anything on to that? We talked about assessments, potentially different ways, tools that they could use to determine that skill set, but doing an inventory even so that they're valuing what is there that they not recognize the value that can be transferred over. So
I also love coming back to their values because it's maybe shifted like from public service to doing that, but how can they, to Alex's point, not change the destination, but how to get there to maintain that wanting to do public service. It may not look like a government job. Yeah, I love that. Okay, I know we don't have a ton. Roland, and then we'll get to the next one. Go ahead.
Okay,
Roland.
just really quick, because this is one of those where we actually know quite a lot, or we think we know quite a lot. So just be very careful not to want to problem solve the issue, not to assume that we know everything there is to know just because it's been in the social media and legacy media and so forth. So, just kind of like do a check-in with ourselves.
Yes, I love that because we do tend to want to now think we know what's going on, but not necessarily from their experience what it is. Great. Okay, so thank you. Shima just posted something. Actually, Ashima, do you want to come off mute and share what you just posted on case study 2?
Sure, I'm camera shy, but I'm happy to talk through it. This was very much a real case study. We've experienced this with our clients and with our friends and, in our network. So Julia and I were partnered together, and we talked about how I think first step is to understand, what does the client want? Like, what's their vision for their future? What do they value? What do they want their career and future to look like? So definitely honing in on that volatility strategy number 2. Asking about their interest in AI. Like, how do you see it as not a threat, but actually a tool that can be leveraged and help you accelerate your career versus, take over? So I think that's kind of tapping into the strengthening your information networks and also prioritizing clarity versus oversimplification. AI is growing and it's taking over in a lot of ways. So I don't think we can oversimplify it, but you can definitely clarify how it can be used. And then lastly, there wasn't much insight into the person's organization or what the leadership structure looked like, but potentially tapping into those senior folks and, building that psychological safety with them so that they know that their future is secure at the company. So
I love that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing that. Roland, go ahead, and you want to just share what you put in the chat while we're there.
Oh, that was me just dovetailing off of what Roland said, but I was like, same.
He that put it in there.
Same, very similar to what Ashima was just mentioning as well, was we realized, and initially there could be a pull because we are experiencing possibly this ambiguity, complexity, all these things as coaches ourselves, the uncertainty that we deal in the ebbs and flows of our practice and revenue, what we're being, possibly exposed to in our environment amongst our friends, our family, former colleagues. So being really grounded in the coaching presence and ensuring in the self-reflection that we are not being biased and assuming we know what of the four challenges may be, and rooting in that curiosity and really wanting to pull from the client where they feel the most stuck, where they envision, like what Ashima was saying, what is the vision and the plan, establishing the coaching agreements here and the understanding of, is this a one-off? Is this a extended agreement? Should we refer? Like I was talking about exploring referral because I don't have entertainment. Is there someone else in my network who would better serve this person? But rooting in that and really resisting the problem solving and the assumptions and the bias would be so important here for us also not to be triggered. Anything else in the group? There was such great dialogue. Anything else that I missed, team?
This is Barry. That was, yeah, there are two. One, Lila said, I'm not sure you said this right now, but said that she's kind of hooked by this. That's my terminology, hook. Like a similar situation, and that's what I heard her say. Like, whoa, how do you deal with this, with all this? And I've been in that, and so we were talking about that. And one thing I brought up that I've done with clients, not on VUCA but other things, is sometimes I'll ask, hey, are you familiar with such and such framework like VUCA? And if they say yes, we might have a conversation. If they say no, hey, would you be open to hearing a little bit, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, boom, 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 boom. Maybe bring it up on a screen. And then sometimes I'll ask them, hey, is there anything that jumps out at you? Kind of like a starting point. So, I don't know, was there anything else from the other two that were in your group?
We have a few minutes. Anybody want to, something I'll share too that I wasn't in the group, but Layla mentioned that just triggered something to me is we also have to be really careful because we are experiencing all this ourselves, is not to overly, I don't want to say overly empathize, but like bring our stuff into it and overly emphasize in a way that we feel like we're being supportive, but we're bringing our own stuff into that too.
Yeah.
Which is, I think there's so much overwhelm going on. Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Maintaining coaching presence is great. Okay, before we do our final official formal closing, any Alex, do you have any last words on this you want to impart to the group?
I think there's been a lot of wisdom shared by the group here, and I just want to say I love how y'all have like taken these concepts and chewed on them with the case studies and made sense of them. And so I'm just grateful to have had the chance to be here with y'all, and I'm excited for you in terms of how you choose to work with this in your coaching practice and yourself. And I won't know how that shows up, but I'm excited about the possibility from it. So thank you for learning in community.
Great. And Alex, we have a request for you to put your contact info into the chat.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. Definitely. I'll do that right now.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to extend our gratitude and appreciation for Alex to speak to us today. Not only do we really value his expertise in this area, but it's always good to have a fellow ICF chapter member from somewhere else to join in with us. So we are thrilled, and a shout out to Layla for the recommendation and connecting me with Alex in the first place. So, and thank you all for participating and the great turnout. We really appreciate your participation and support. We always love to be able to connect and grow here, and that's part of this very, very, very special community.